Um, I've been painting on Yupo for about the last 10 years. I started off with traditional watercolor, which I still love to do, but um, I hated Yupo like most people do when they first try it. And after I quit fighting it and working with it, I determined that I loved it and gotten a lot of some success with it. So this is what I'm going to do is I've got it narrowed down to about 3 stages where you start with the plain Yupo paper, and I'm assuming everybody's used Yupo or knows about Yupo. It's yeah, no, it's polypropylene, so it's non-porous. The paint sits on the surface, and you can start over and wipe things off if you need to. So that's why I called this about experimenting, freedom to experiment, because you can do all kinds of things. If you don't like it, take it off, try something else. And then the second stage, because Yupo takes so long to dry, I can't do just one painting. It'll just never come together in 45 minutes or so. So the second stage is when I do most of the more detailed work on it. And I'll be painting right on these. And then the third stage, after I'm finished with that, I will finish this and like bring out this lobster and things like that and just put in some more detail work. So anyway, to get it started, I don't always do a sketch on the Yupo. Sometimes I just start with it clean and then put a lot of colors on it in locations that I think I might be wanting the painting to go. And does this, I don't have to paint upside down or anything, right? Okay, good. And something you have to do is get fingerprints off it as best you can, or you'll get all kinds of resists on it. So I know you can use soap and water, like detergent, but I've been using alcohol, especially if I've drawn on it, because I'm going to have handprints all over it. And I just give it a good wipe down. And that still may not get all of the fingerprints and resist off it. In fact, I had a whole pack of paper that there was some kind of weird resist on it with a texture that I don't know how it got on there. And I'm hoping this paper didn't come from it, because I kind of ran out of Yupo paper, and I ordered some more and got some in, and I'm just hoping that this does not have that. But if it does, we'll just work with it. So let that dry very quick. Uh-huh. A little bit, but really, I don't know if you can see it. I just wiped this down, and you can still see. Sorry, I forget that we have a screen here, don't we? So, and it doesn't really matter if I kind of know what I want to do. So I really put the little sketches in here just so I can leave areas, or I can put a special color in there. Occasionally, I'll use an iridescent paint or something if I'm doing fish, but I'm not going to do that today. So I'm going to start by putting on the dry paper some dabs of paint in areas like this. Is going to be the coral area. They're not identical paintings, obviously, but they're all going to be the similar paintings of, undersea pictures. So I'm going to put more of the yellow down where there's going to be coral, and just a little bit up, because obviously mixed with blue, I'll get some nice watercolors up here. And I'm using some ultramarine. It really doesn't. When I'm doing the base, I tend to use less expensive paints, although these are not less expensive paints. And because sometimes you just put so much water in it and pick it up and it runs off, and you're just losing so much paint that I hate to use my best paints and waste it all. I won't use M. Graham. I like their paint very much, but it won't dry well. It holds too much moisture. And I'm just putting a touch of the violet in there, and I may have too much and have to take it out, but you can tell down in the coral I put a little bit, and it makes interesting patterns. There's different properties to different paints too, whether they have a lot more pigment or not. And it makes the paint move differently on the paper, which makes it fun. So I usually start by moving some of the yellows around just because I don't want it totally to mix, and I probably need more yellow. Put a bit more, because obviously I want it lighter at the top where the sunlight's going to come through. It's a good thing I'm last of the day because I'm going to be one of the messier painters. The fish, I might leave some white spots on them. Just for, you know, or even in the background just to look like little fish in the background flashing. And I'm going to try to work fast just because, first of all, it's not really fun to watch people paint. And I've watched people slowly paint, and it's just like, but also the point of this isn't to create a masterpiece in the end. It will be for me later, but for right now, it's not. Right now, it's just to show you how the paint works on the paper. Okay, now I'm going to start bringing in the blues. And I do, when I'm working on like water, I'm going to try to keep more of the water motion in it, but I don't want all of the plain paint to be lost. And you can see I'm not really all that careful when it comes to doing the base layer. It just doesn't need to be. Now, somebody was asking me if you lose the pencil marks, it does pose a problem after you get too much paint on here because you can't see what you drew. So, I mean, you can look carefully through it and see it, but you all won't see it. So on that second painting, you'll see that I kind of outlined the fish. I don't normally do that, but I did that so you guys could see where I'm going to go with that. All right, so I'm going to, normally I would put a little bit more color on there, but we're just going to go with this. Spray bottles are great. I have a whole lot of different colors of spray bottles and yellows and blues and purples because they just help with more texture and making things move. This is just clear, but I can go ahead and add in like some blues. I want to get some more water in there. It's about this much, and then, you know, when you pull it out of the tube, it's about this much, and then the rest is water. And then I'll try to make these things move around, and if it's not moving enough, I'll add more paint. And if anybody has any questions, don't hesitate. I kind of like to be asked things while I'm painting. What I found is that the violet ends up being really pretty. You can see when they dried on some of those, they get some real interesting textures. Because this is about experimenting, I might just let it dry at this point, but I want to try a couple other things just to see how it'll turn out. If I don't like how it turns out after this stage, in the second stage, I just kind of go over it and paint something else. So this is some liquid watercolor paint, and I could put like a drop, and it'll, can you see this in the thing? Okay. It'll spread. I can take a brush if I want and move things around, because I'm kind of thinking maybe that might be some kind of a sea anemone or something at the end. Or I might, after it dries, hate it and just kind of obliterate it. I also occasionally will put in some things to cause more texture, like bike gears, and just throw it on there and let it sit and dry. Or lace. And I won't leave it just like that. I'll end up coming in and painting over it. But you just kind of get some interesting textures in there. That's a bike gear. My husband's a cyclist, and our garage is full of things like that. So I'm always looking for things, and sometimes it'll make just a nice little pattern, but I'll come in and cover it up with other things. I don't ever want it to look like just the thing I put on there. It's just to add texture. And this is kind of boring, but it really makes some good patterns sometimes, is bubble wrap. So I'll just lay it in there or something. Anyway, at this point, that has to dry before I can go on to the next phase. So I'm going to move it and just lay it on the ground and hope I don't step on it. It's about like watercolor paper, like good watercolor paper. I probably will today so I can put it in the car. Who asked the question? Oh, okay. But I don't really like to because it moves the paint around. Now, you might want to move the paint around. That's the thing. I mean, you can do all kinds of things and just see how it comes out. But if you do use the hair dryer, don't let it get too hot. I was reading earlier, because I was a scientist before, that the properties of polypropylene, which this is, it starts to melt at about 320 degrees. So I don't know how hot a blow dryer gets. Hopefully not like that. But you don't want it too intense on there, because you could warp the paper. And I've had the paper warp just by the sun on it really intense. Like if it's I put this under plexiglass usually, or regular glass. And I've been at art festivals, and if the sun was coming in on it, it'll just cook it. And it can get wavy. So you have to watch for that. Huh? Well, the glass, I think, probably makes it worse. Yeah, it's like a magnifier. I don't know what about brand, because Yupo itself is a brand. But I get it from a couple of the big, vendors. Cheap Joe's or Blick, yeah, or Jerry's. For reference material, I do a lot of underwater scenes. So for reference material, I go to like the Florida Aquarium, which is where I got like the lobster stuff. So but I never copy them. I just kind of do my own fish. But that's how, this is a bad picture, but that's how I just look at it for reference to get ideas. So we're in the next stage here, and I think you can see how pretty this dried on here. I love all these little patterns in here. And this one I didn't put any of the little toys and things in it. But I can always come back in and add it at this stage. There's really no rules with this paper. You can just kind of do a lot of different things with it. And like if I don't like the water up here very much, I can wet that back down and have it start moving again. But I think what I'm going to do at this point is just start working on these big fish. Now, I don't want too much of this background showing through. So I'm going to have to take off just by wetting it. There's a lot of darks in this fish, so I don't mind if there's some. You can really just, you can wipe it for that matter, but I just want to get some of that off there so I can put some pretty colors over it. My fish doesn't have to look just like that fish. So on this one, I think I'm going to do an imprint with some of the lace and some bubble wrap, and this guy, this shelf paper, is wonderful. My studio is a mess, just so you know, and you can already see I've made a mess of this place in a short time. But I use these, most people use them for acrylic paint, and they have the sponge in it to keep it wet. But it's a great thing for dumping large amounts of paint on. And let's see. I'm going to go with some yellows. Just try putting some of that in there. And like I said, as boring as it may sound, the bubble wrap can make some nice designs. Let's see. And I can spray over it too if I want to get some interesting patterns. Yes, that's the other thing you can do is use it and then use the stiff brush and put pretty or heavy paint in there. I could do that. Let's see. I'll just do it with part of that one. Using a dry brush. Let's see if I can get it to go through. Yeah, it's working good. Now, this has to sit there longer, but I think maybe you can still see that I'm getting some nice patterns in there. Can you see that? Okay. And this one didn't come out as pretty as I'd like, so it'll probably get obliterated later on. Anyway, I'm not going to finish the fish, but this is how I start working. If I like something, it's going to stay, and if I don't, I start changing it in a later stage after it's had a chance to dry. Okay, well, anyway, if you can see what it's doing, and then am I okay on time? I have no idea. Start working on my fishtail. But I'm going to need some darker colors. This is a neutral color. I hardly ever use plain black. And what I'm going to do is I don't like things outlined like that. So come in and lift off some of the lines. When I work on it, I typically let it dry a whole lot and not keep working on it while it's wet like this. But for this, we'll be doing that. And the reason I got into watercolor in the first place is because I like how quick you can work. I used to do oil painting when I was young, and I hated how it took forever to dry. And I'm an impatient type person, so I got into watercolor. And this completely defeats it because I have to wait for it to dry between things. And I have no patience for that. So I always work at home where I can walk off and go do something else for a while and then come back. Otherwise, if I keep working on it while it's wet, I'll make a mess of things. Yes. Yeah, I do. But usually it's smaller because I don't have that big of a studio. I wish I did. That'd be nice. Anyway, this is very wet. And this is where I should show you some other kind of a tool to get some textures. Well, I don't know how well it'll work, but this is the whole idea is experiment and see what'll work. But I want to get some. Yeah, that's not working too good. I'm getting, you can't see it, but I'm getting some nice little faint lines in here. There we go. But I'm going to want to get some nice, interesting lines for. Another thing that is fun to do, and this takes a while too, so I'll just give you an idea of it, is I'll take tape, tear it so I don't have any sharp edges like that. And I would love to see some faint seaweed in the background. And so what I'll do, I've done this with like mangroves and things where I just in the background I want kind of abstract looking weeds or trunks of trees or things. And I just tear them so that they're kind of no straight lines. And again, I'm not going to make you watch me rip tape, but there's two things I can do to handle this. There may be way more than two, but what I have done is I can go in and spray, but then this has to dry. If I take it off too soon, it'll just flow. Or I can take paint and roll over it, and that'll give some interesting texture back there. In fact, I'm going to add more color on there. Yupo? Ah, this is what I've been looking for. I put it in a new bottle and I didn't recognize it. Just a little bit of purple will make it a lot more interesting. This painting. What time do I have to? Oh, okay. Okay, great. Good. So I'm going to do another fish. And I don't like that color very much because it's kind of muddy. So I'm going to have to wipe some of that off again. Not that mud's bad. Sometimes mud's good, but mud's not good on this one. So I think I should put in another color in this one. Also with Yupo, I don't use the best brushes. I like them a little stiffer, so it's actually kind of nice to buy cheap brushes on these. I have so many brushes at home because I still have all my paints and everything from doing regular watercolor where you really need better brushes. But on this one, with Yupo, I find some of the cheaper stiff brushes are nicer. So and this guy's just a made-up fish. Put another color, type of pattern in him. And I don't always use patterns on my paintings, but I thought it would be fun for this one because we're experimenting. Scraping is always good. Like that. Anyway, so what I'm really doing is playing. And that's what I'm trying to encourage you guys to do with it, is just see what kind of effects you can get and don't try to follow any kind of rules. And if you don't like it, do something else. So this is when I would also be putting in more detail. I have to let it dry. I don't have that, but like the eye on the fish. She's got this beautiful big yellow eye. Watercolor. Yeah, I never use ink. I do at the only other type of paint I use is I'll use gouache at the last stage, just because I want it to be really opaque. But this really needs to be dry to like put in his eye and everything. But I don't think I can really do him right now. But anyway, you got the idea of how we do it. Now I'd kind of like to put in some more things on the bottom of this, like I started to show you on the first one there. Like if I try with dripping the paint in like I did before, I'm just going to wet a spot. This time I'll see what happens with some yellow paint. Not showing up very good. And then I can just kind of move it around. Might want to do another one like that. And then I have to really wait and see when it dries if I'm going to like it. I can see I had some overrun on my fish over here, so I'll have to work with that. And I can get rid of that at the end with some rolling some paint over it or just lifting some. It will if you press very hard. So at the very last stages, I'm almost always using a roller because especially paintbrushes will lift it. So sometimes I want to lift it, but this is working really wet, so that's it's just kind of hard to work when it's that wet. Like this sponge roller. Sometimes you use the ones with the sharper edges on it. So if I need to cut in, I've tried using a plain brayer, and I don't really care how that works. So let me just kind of try to make this fish look a little better before he dries. Color. So this is where it's, you don't like it, wipe it out. And then come in. I hardly ever have a painting that completely doesn't work because I can come back and work it over and over and over again. Whereas on regular paper, that's just not possible. Yes, yes I do. Yeah, this is a Krylon, and it's the UV resistant clear. And yeah, because if you don't, a single drop of moisture can mess things up. It won't protect it from melting. It just protects, well, it won't protect it from heat, but it will protect it from yeah, you're losing your painting.
Do you know yet how these do over time?
Well, no yellowing. I have some hanging in my house that I've had for 10 or 12 years, and they're still fine. I haven't seen any change because I wondered about that when I first started painting. Anyway. Yes. Usually. Usually it'll flatten back out again. There was one time I was at a festival in Inglewood and the sun came in and just warped my painting so bad I thought I was going to have to throw it out. But we were able to turn it upside down, and using a blow dryer with, pretty gently with the blow dryer, we were able to like warm it back up again and then flatten it out. And we were able to fix it, but I'm sure you can get to the point where it's unfixable. So you have to watch that. About this, it's pretty close, and I'll do it about 3 coatings. I'll go over it, make sure I cover every bit of it, and then let it dry. Come back and do it 3 times. It needs to be good and dry. Yeah. So anyway, let me put this guy aside because yes. Yeah. And usually plexiglass, but it can go under regular glass. But you don't have to. I mean, I know I could do it without it, but I just like the looks under the glass. So on this one, I'm getting near the end, but you can't hardly see the lobster, so I need to bring him out. And And that's what I'm going to start with first. And this is where I'll get out some gouache, which I hope I set it out here. Oh, also, frisket can be used if you need to block out areas that don't want to get your paint to overflow. Frisket. And this, you can tell I use like some cheaper gouaches because I use a lot of it usually. And you can mix it with a little bit of acrylic if you want to. That's white. And I need black. I'm going to come in here to try to bring out this lobster. Try to pull up the picture if you can see it. Sorry for the mess. Can you see that? Or is it in the picture? No? Can you see it on there? Okay. Is it upside down? Okay. All right. So I'm mixing just a few colors with some gouache because, again, I don't like to use straight black. No, this is gouache, but you can use some acrylic in it. If I use acrylic, I use just a tiny, tiny bit. What I'm just trying to do is get a nice dark color to try to bring out this lobster. But I want it kind of grayed down. And when you use the sponge roller, the harder you push down, the more paint you're going to get out. So what I'm trying to do is have him coming out of his little cave hole here, yeah. Yeah, if somebody had to paint here after me, they'd hate me. There's paint all over the place. Try to bring out the legs a little bit. It kind of lifts it. I can show you. When I'm working just a small area like this, I might come in there and just dab it with the brush, and it's not too bad. Because this is a little unwieldy sometimes when you're trying to get some detail in. But if I worked over this over and over again, it would lift it. So I try to do as much as I can with just the roller. I hope he's starting to pop out a little bit. Okay, good. I really should be using the sharper edge so I can cut him in better. Sometimes you just want to ghost things out a little bit too, and like I'll just go right over it and kind of ghost it a little so it's not too obvious. So you guys, you can see this coming out, okay? Okay, good. All right. Oh, and then I get to show you a fun thing for working on coral. The paint over it? Well, the fixative is acrylic. So if I put watercolor over it, I think I'd have to use acrylic paint because I've thought about that on a couple paintings I have finished. It's like, well, gosh, there's some things I'd like to do to it, and I haven't tried it yet, but I think it would work fine with acrylic paint. But you kind of lose it as a watercolor paint. But in the end, I mean, really, what matters to me is how it comes out. You know, if you like it, if other people like it. So now I'm going to go back to do some gouache with white and make the coral pop. You really need a lot of paint. I go through a lot of paint. It makes it kind of expensive, but that's why I'm using some cheap stuff too. It's a little too yellow, but put some more white. And this is where I love using a sea sponge. And I just bought this nice pack. I didn't know they sold them like that. I live near Tarpon Springs, so I can find all the sponges I want. And just wet it just a tiny bit, very much. But I can come back in here and try to pop out some of this coral. I don't want to lose all of the interesting patterns I have down in here. Of course, I need to vary the colors a bit. I know you all know this too, but the hardest thing in the world is trying to see your paint when your face is right in it. You really need to look, let it dry and step back and take a look at it. And then what I would do to finish this painting, I'm not loving this water up here, but I may go back in and put in some little white fish in the background. And even though this fish kind of stands out, I'm tempted to come in and get a little bit of water on it so he blends a little more. I don't like him too sharp. So, see if that helps, just to kind of make him not so exact there. Also might even get out my little brushes and try to pick up some of the whites. You can lift it right off to make them pop more. But I do kind of keep coming back and messing with a painting for a long time. People always ask me, and I know they ask you, how long does it take to do a painting? And there's just no way to answer that. Well, on this one, I initially wanted to make him the focal point, but this fish is so big, and your eye's going to just naturally go to it. So, what I'll end up doing is coming back in here and, blending back things that are sticking out too much. And this guy may get hit with some spray, or maybe some more gouache rolled over him to make him go back a little bit, but still be able to see him. So, yeah, in the end, I do worry about focal point. But at this point of the game, it's about showing how the paper works and what you can do with it and experiment with it. Yeah, makes him look at. Well, like I said, I originally wanted him to pop more, and I might have to do it, maybe putting more red on him or something to make him stand out, and then water this guy back down a little bit more. But it's kind of hard to do it when it's still wet, and I have to keep coming back as it dries. I can try pop a little red on him now just to see what happens. Yeah, this is watercolor. I'm just trying to, can't work over it and over it, but I just kind of wanted to see what would happen if I put some more red on him, if he starts to show up a little bit more. But I also don't want him to look like he's already been boiled. Is he popping out more, or is this guy still the star? It's still going to be this guy. So, in the end, I don't know. I'll have to probably prop it up somewhere. I can't do it while it's wet because it'll just flow. I'll just end up with little streaks coming down. But I may have to just make a decision on which way I want to go. This guy's the star, or this guy's the star. I might do that, but then you'd have to watch me tear a bunch of tape. But I could do that. I could bring in some more grasses, because these are the three paintings are going to end up being very similar. And if somebody wants to get a triptych, yeah, we can do that. Now on the coral, it's going to need some pure whites put in there on top of that other I had. That's gouache. Mm-hmm. Trying to make it be something more precise. Now, I can get it more precise now. I've been working with it long enough, and I just know how much water to put in. If less water you use, the more you can paint, but then it starts to look like an acrylic paint, and I don't want it to do that. And right now, to me, this is too intense. I would like it to be more flowy, and I'll end up doing that down the road as it dries out. But I just kind of wanted to show you guys the little tricks I do for, like, see right now this paint underneath it is too wet, but I would come in here when it's dry and pop in some highlights. Just so makes this guy. Now see, now that to me, when I'm getting the white in there, it's making this darker and pop out a little bit more. And I like the idea of putting in some seaweed back in here. In fact, I might just go ahead and do that if I have time. Go right ahead. All right. I'm just going to put some in there. because I think that I like the idea of tying it. Well, I did a painting of some mangroves, and it was huge, and there was tape all over it. And it took forever. And then I'm going to have to, it's still wet, but I'm going to have to put something over the fish so I don't get paint all over him. Yeah, I can do just a piece of paper. When I first started doing this, I got really technical about it and used Frisket and cut it all out and everything, and that's a pain. Don't need to do that. Okay, we'll do just enough here to see how it looks. Then yeah, I'm just going to let's put something over my fish just to keep him from getting sprayed. Maybe he'll get a nice pattern in him in the process. Not necessarily. Just sometimes on your brush is enough. Got on my fish anyway, but that's okay. We can fix that. Now, this is kind of dangerous, but I'm going to stick a little green in there. I don't think I'm going to like it, but just a touch. Yeah. I don't want the green. We'll do blue. If I can find it. And the sad thing is I can't pull it off and show you what it's going to do because it's too wet. Yeah, I was going to see if it's dry. It might be. Might be dry enough. So, yeah, I think it's dry enough that I can show you. Anyway, this is a mess right now, so I'm going to move this guy out of the way. And I can come back in here later and fix anything. You can fix anything on this. This may have dried enough. See if any of these patterns came out nice. Well, just a little bit. The lace didn't come out great, but this is when I will come back in and I'll bring out the fish on there. Here's the tape. It's not totally dry. It's not totally dry at all, but I think you'll have an idea that you can get these patterns in here. It's real wet under it. Yeah, this one it really needs to dry, but you can see the patterns in there. But yeah, that's the one thing. Everything really needs to dry, which makes it hard to do a demo. Oh, thanks. So I could sit here and keep messing with it, but it's wet and it's just going to be mud. So, so I'm really done. I have 4 minutes to spare. But in the end, I will make this into beautiful paintings. You will see. And I'll put it on my website. You can see it. Okay. Thank you. Oh, I'm not on Instagram, but I do have a website. It's amandafullerton.info. And amandafullerton.info. If you just put in Amanda Fullerton, it'll come up. Yeah.